Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ Podcast. Today, I've got a wonderful guest with me to introduce this podcast. It is my youngest daughter, Cameron Quinn. What's up?
What's up?
So, with her helping me out with introducing this podcast, we got a couple things that we got to shout out. First, let's start with the Vertical Helicast Network. So we are a part of the Vertical Podcast Network at verticalhelicast.com. If you go to that link, you can see the Hangar Z podcast, the Helicopter podcast, and all of the Vertical MRO podcast. Again, verticalhelicast.com. Now, a couple of shout outs to our sponsors. Precision Aviation Group. Get off the ground with tip-to-tail solutions with Precision Aviation Group. Check them out at precisionaviationgroup.com. Ready Swimmer. Training the body, sharpening the mind, and building leaders. Our mission is to make you ready. Check them out at readyswimmer.com.
Dad, don't forget to introduce the Real ResQ store.
Of course. Why would I forget that? Go ahead. Tell them where they can go.
Get your Real ResQ swag at therealresqstore.com.
Nice. Thanks, Cam.
Got you.
All right. Let's bring us into this episode.
Introducing U.S. Army Physician Assistant Andy French. Let's go.
My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ Podcast. Today, I get a treat because I don't actually get, I'm going to say your kind.
Well, what do you mean you're kind?
What are you saying?
Yeah.
I mean this for two ways. Number one, he's a United States Army, so he's a soldier, an officer. He's a physician assistant. Well done, sir. Mr.
Thank you.
Andy French. What's up, dude?
Not much, man. How's it going?
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, number 500. Finally made it on with you.
I know. I'm so excited. We have been literally banging emails back and forth for like, oh my gosh, it's been almost a year now. Wow.
Has it really been that long?
It could be.
Oh man, yeah. Probably about that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just shy. Almost. Like it's been a long time. And it's just between your schedule and my schedule and this and that and yeah. So, well, now I finally get when I say you people, I mean Army and physician assistant.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. Like I told you earlier, I've been listening for a while, and I've just been impressed with like the caliber of guests you've gotten on and everything. Yeah, I can't believe you had Dakota Meyer on.
I can't believe I had Dakota Meyer on. Okay, that makes two of us.
that was wild. Larry Farmer. I mean, that guy's a legend.
Another one. I can't believe you said yes. But both those guys.
Yeah. That's nuts. And now I'm like, what am I doing here, dude? Like,
well, you're here because you have some stories. That's why.
Yeah, lots of stories. Most of them true. Yeah.
Well, you know what? We can elaborate a little bit. I'm okay with it. You know, I'm just saying.
Just
it's the story. Yeah. It's the story the way you remember it.
That's right. That's right. You know, usually the older you get, the better you were. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those things.
Of course. There I was.
Yeah.
Oh, Andy, this is the way this conversation is going already. I am so pumped. This is going to be amazing.
Good, man. Yeah, me too. I'm stoked.
Oh, it's so funny. Well, I'll tell you what, before I get too far into it, I do want to throw out a mad prop to you. Again, you're in the U.S. Army. You've done a whole bunch of stuff, and you've earned some awards while you're in. I just want to recognize you for that. As you've earned a Bronze Star Medal, 4 Commendation Medals, that's Army Commendation Medals, and 5 Army Achievement Medals. Dude, well done in your time in service so far. That's amazing. The greatest part about that shout out right there is none of that actually has to do with anything that we're going to talk about today. I just want to shout that out because that's awesome. So
thanks.
You're welcome.
You know, that's usually how Army awards go. You know, the really good stuff you do doesn't get seen really. And then you get the awards for the mundane, you know, normal service stuff. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're very, very welcome. All right, Andy. Well, I'll tell you what, man. Let's get a little background about you. like where you're from. How did you get into the Army? And then I know there's a long path between Army and getting into PA. So how did all that work?
Yeah, you got it. So it was, I had a great upbringing as a kid. Where we're from is always a difficult question because I was a military brat. My dad was a Coast Guard Academy graduate, and
Nice.
then yeah, right. So we
He's
got
an
some
academy guy. One of those
yeah,
guys.
one of them. I know, and trust me, he acted like an academy guy too.
When he listens to this, he's gonna be like, Andy, you know, I have to talk to you right now.
Have you
I'm
met
just
my
kidding, Dad.
father?
I'm
You
just
sound
kidding.
just like him.
I've been around an academy guy or two.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can get him on here with you because he's got some wild stories. But we
Oh,
moved.
let's go.
Oh yeah. I'll poke him about that. But we were constantly moving every 3 or 4 years. So he was a graduate of the Uniformed Services University out in Bethesda, Maryland. That's where he went to med school. Was an emergency medicine physician and a flight surgeon. So we were moving every 3 or 4 years, and all these places are probably familiar to you. We were out in San Diego, Sitka, Alaska,
Oh, yeah.
Cape May, New Jersey, right? Actually spent some time out in Massachusetts. He was stationed down at one of the clinics in Boston, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a big sector, right? Is it sector
Mhm.
now? Whatever. Yeah, Station Boston. Yeah.
Yep.
They have a whole bunch of
But we actually lived in Foxborough back when
nice.
Foxborough Stadium was still up, and I think when we were there, that's when they tore that down and actually built Gillette Stadium.
Yeah.
So
Wow,
super fun
that's
place
like-
to live.
That's like
Yeah.
old school right there, man. That's cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah, go Pats, dude. And
I knew
then
you
from
would have
there,
to be friends right off the get go.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I-
Right? Everybody else, whatever. I don't care. Let's go, Patriots.
And then from there we moved to Frederick, Maryland, and because my dad was working at Coast Guard headquarters down in DC, and I think working for Department of Transportation too, on or the National Transportation Safety Board or something. But that's kind of his story to tell. I couldn't keep up with everything that he was doing. Plus, I was a teenager, so I was only worried about one person, this guy, right?
Yeah.
But a great upbringing. I loved it. I loved moving. It was a lot of fun. Every 3 years you get to discover a new town. Yeah, and being kind of an awkward kid, you could kind of reinvent yourself every time you moved. Nobody knew, about you pooping your pants in 3rd grade or anything like that. You get a fresh start. So it was. I liked it a lot. Made a lot of good friends along the way. And then my mom worked as a occupational therapist. So really, between the two of them and their career paths, have changed or affected or saved, hundreds of lives through their service and their occupation and what they do. And so I think that definitely got imprinted on me growing up, whether I knew it or not. But so yeah, we moved to Maryland. I want to say my sophomore year of high school. We were in the DC metro area. As a kid, always wearing fatigues, running around, playing with my dad's gear and everything. Always playing Army because I didn't know what the Coast Guard was really. Everybody wore BDUs back then. I thought it was all the same. And eventually was able to distinguish the difference. But come around into high school, I had no ambition to join the military or anything. I wanted to play sports. I wanted to be in bands and meet girls. And that was pretty much it. Right. As any normal teenager, man, I don't trust the government. I don't want to be a military guy. It's one of those kids that was like, I wouldn't let a drill sergeant yell at me. Like, well, that's not true. And so I think it was my senior year of high school. 9/11 happened, right? And I had actually I'd gone to school, and I was in our library, and I can't remember if it was just one of those TVs that had randomly gotten rolled out when things started happening, or if there was always one there. But saw the first tower hit, and I was in the library watching it with the librarian. And I was like, I got to get back to class. I'm going to be late. And she had enough foresight or intuition to be like, you should probably stay here and watch this. And so I'm sitting there with the librarian, and that's when the second tower got hit. And she's like, okay, you need to go to class. This is there's something else going on here. Wow. And so went to class, and a TV had gotten rolled out in the class that I was in. And then shortly after that, we get the announcement. It's like, hey, if you drove here, everybody's got to go home. We're calling all the buses, because we were in the DC metro area. And so what we didn't know is that the Pentagon had gotten hit as well. And I didn't realize that until I got in the car and started driving home and heard it on the radio. And I was like, oh man, like this is real. I couldn't put it all into words or really wrap my head around it, but mostly because I was just a young kid. But I knew that this was something serious that was, really changing everything. And so I get home, and my dad's home, and he's packing up all of his gear, all of his stuff, because at the time he was part of what they call a DMAT, disaster medical alert team. And I asked him, where are you going? And he said, New York City. And he had actually gotten mobilized to go provide medical support at Ground Zero there.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that kind of resonated with me, and changed my view on my interest in the service and in the military. And I think that was kind of the pivotal point where that really influenced my decision to go into the service, right? And so I fast forward, I ended up commissioning at the prestigious West Virginia University. Perhaps you've heard of it. It's practically an Ivy League school.
Of course I have.
Or the number one party school in the nation.
Whatever.
I commissioned into the active duty Army as an intelligence officer. And got to do a lot of cool things with that. I did that for a long stretch, about 7-8 years. Deployed a couple times, did a bunch of different exercises. Got stationed all over the world. I mean, Hawaii, Korea, but and then Afghanistan as well. But I didn't really enjoy the work. It's in the Army, in the intelligence field, you are pretty much guaranteed that you are going to be on staff most of your career, right? So sitting behind a computer, planning, and I just didn't enjoy that. I wanted to be near the lowest levels, outside, getting dirty, rucking, actually being out there, getting hands on. The admin. Yeah,
buddy.
The administrative jobs weren't for me. So I ended up transitioning to a different branch and assessed and went to school for psychological operations, which was awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I don't even know what that is. Psychological operations? Like is that an MOS in the Army?
Yeah. It's its own branch. Yeah, it's its own branch in the Army. Yeah, it's kind of I wouldn't say it's not well known, but it's not a common branch. You typically can't come in as a brand new officer into PsyOps. It's something that you have to assess for, just because there is you're typically heavily utilized by the Special Operations Command. There's a relationship there with them. Psychological operations and civil affairs. Those two branches, their primary customer is the soft community. They still support conventional military, but I think because of that, they want officers in it that have had a little bit of experience. And then obviously the selection process is there for a reason too. But the whole intent of it is the motto is persuade, change, and influence. And it's doing a deep dive analysis on things and trying to figure out how can we get this group of people to do X, Y, or Z, or how can we convince them to do this or that. So for an example, in Iraq, when we're trying to establish a legitimate government, it's, well, how are we going to convince these folks to get out and vote? Because they don't look at this government as legitimate. So, with this specific subgroup of people, well, these are their values. This is part of their culture. This is what they believe in. Well, okay, we just got to, if we want them to vote, we have to convince them that this government meets their values and their beliefs. So it could be something like that. And you influence these changes through different types of media, flyers, meeting with key leadership. And you're also out there collecting atmospherics, because that's the only way you can know what these people think about what's going on regarding whatever your mission is. So that's an example. Or you may have a road by a village that's constantly getting IED'd and say, well, what can we do to stop them from putting in IEDs? What's driving them to do so? Is it money? Is it just that their beliefs fall more in line with the Taliban, or whatever it is? And then how can we change that? And I got to do a lot of travel with that. I did a lot of work out in Southeast Asia. I got to go up to one of the military schools in Canada and teach PSYOP to the Canadian military for a while. That was a blast. But as all great things must eventually come to an end. And typically, as you're moving up in rank, there's just not a spot for you down at that team level anymore. And so they're looking at me, becoming the XO. And I should rewind a little bit. Before that, on the civilian side, because I had transitioned from active duty to the reserves during that time. Okay. And on the civilian side, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I kind of had developed an interest in medicine, which was inevitable with what my parents did.
We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. The Real ResQ Store.com. Your shop for all your podcast-worthy gear. From comfortable shirts to cozy mugs, we've got everything to showcase your love for your favorite podcast. So what are you waiting for? Head to the RealResQStore.com and let your gear do the talking.
And so I went to EMT school. I was like, this is awesome. I was like, I get to ride around in a fancy bus and go see a bunch of weird stuff. Like, I am all about this. And I was like, but I want to do IVs. I want to innovate. I want to do more. So I just rolled right into the paramedic class, and it just got even more cool and got to see even more weird stuff. And so had gotten my my paramedic license on the civilian side, and was doing the PSYOP stuff on the reserves at the same time. And I knew I wanted to. I really liked being a medic. It was great. I did that out in North Carolina for a little while, and then moved to Washington and worked as a tech in an emergency department out there. But I had made the major list, or I was coming up on making major, and they're like, well, we got a battalion XO job lined up for you. And I was like, oh, staff, we're back here again.
Welcome back to the computer. Oh, man,
yeah.
You're flying
like, here's your government issued laptop, know, and with the medic job, I'd been looking at, I was in that same spot. I was like, I want to continue to do more. I want advance my practice. And I was looking at nursing school, I was looking at med school, all these different options. And my dad actually made the recommendation because I had applied to a nursing school and they had kind of messed up my GI Bill and weren't taking a lot of my credits. And so I was looking at a different program. He's like, why don't you just look at PA school? You know, you're not going to have to do the time that it takes to get through med school. You don't have to necessarily pick a specific specialty. You have the ability to kind of jump around. And it sounded really great to me. And to make it all even better, I started making a list of all these different PA programs in the nation and what credits I had and all their different requirements on this fancy spreadsheet. And the one where I was most eligible was actually the DoD's PA school. It's called IPAP. It's the Inter-Service Physician Assistant Program. And so joint service school, we got everybody there: Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard. So as soon as I met all the requirements for it, I applied, and luckily I was a first time go and got into the program. It's a fantastic program. Met a lot of really weird, quirky, funny people throughout it, people that I'm still friends with to this day. So I went out to San Antonio. You do a year and a half out there in the didactic phase, and then they boot you out to, a branch affiliated hospital to do your year of clinical. So I went out to Colorado Springs and did my clinical year out there and graduated in October of 2019. Yep.
Just before COVID.
Oh man. Yeah.
Bro. Yep. Way to come out of the
tough,
gates just like, chicks fully loaded, let's go.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. And it was wild. So I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get a job out of PA school. I was trying to stay in Colorado Springs or somewhere in Colorado. Really liked it. Big time skier. So, I wanted to stay close to the mountains. And even right before COVID hit, I couldn't find a job. I think just because the medical community there is just oversaturated. Everybody wants to live in Denver. Everybody wants to live in Colorado. They always tell you throughout PA school, there's such a need for providers right now. There's so many jobs, which is not a lie. It's true. But, what I learned is that those jobs are in like rural, middle of nowhere places
that nobody actually wants to go and hang out.
Yeah, exactly.
Darn it.
So I couldn't get a job. Oh, and I should mention too, after PA school, I had to take a demotion. So I was back down to being a captain again. Yeah, kind of a weird.
I'm sorry.
No, I didn't have to pay for PA school. They could have made me a private. I would have been happy, but better than having student loans,
I can't argue with it. Can't argue with it. Yep.
Yeah. It's a thing that they do because I think they like the rank to match the kind of like your level of practice, how long you've been practicing.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's why they do it, right? So you wouldn't want a brand new PA coming in as a major, and now you're at like a more senior level overlooking other PAs, right. Which is funny because that's exactly what happened to me. So yeah, so I knew coming out of PA school that I wanted to fly. And so luckily in Colorado Springs, there was a reserve aviation unit. And so that's the unit I went into as my first job as an Army PA. And it was fantastic. It was everything I hoped it would be. Went off to the flight surgeon course out in Fort Rucker. But they put me in as the brigade PA, which is the senior PA.
Yeah, man.
It was like in Talladega Nights. What do I do with my hands? I don't know what to do with my hands.
They just said they're not going down. I don't understand. Why are you putting me in this position?
Yeah, but it was awesome.
Wow.
It was a good experience. Yeah. But yeah, COVID came around. Couldn't get a job first because I was new. But then because COVID hit hard and it hit fast, But luckily got mobilized for COVID, went out to Philadelphia. Didn't really do much, not like the folks in New York did, or some of the other really bad spots that got hit. But it gave me a job in really my first run as like as an actual PA. Just kind of doing sick call stuff and things like that. Did a lot of hanging out in the hotel, watching TV. That was mostly that mobilization. But came back and I had a buddy that I went to PA school with, and he grew up in Albuquerque. He's like, you should look at New Mexico. So took a trip down to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I was like, oh, this place is awesome. Yeah, this is just like Southern Colorado. And you got skiing right there in town. I mean, it had everything that I wanted. So applied for my New Mexico license, and it was just like job offers nonstop.
All over. Oh, beautiful.
I was like, I should have done this a long time ago. Yeah. So got my first real job working emergency medicine out in Albuquerque. And then mobilized to Kuwait and Iraq with that aviation unit for 9 months. And and then from there, we like I was kind of telling you a little bit earlier, I deployed with another PA, and so we were out in Al Asad Air Base in Iraq working together, and just had a great time just being around flyers. I mean, you know how it is being in the aviation community.
Yeah.
It is. Those guys are just so much fun to work with, and then to boot, you get to fly around in helicopters. I mean, most people have never even flown in a helicopter. And so
people are paying us to do it. What?
Yeah, I know. Man, turning money into noise and jet fumes. You know, it's
Totally.
It's a great job.
Absolutely.
So we were just talking about, like, man, it'd be great if we could do this on the civilian side. And so we just asked old Dr. Google, flight physician assistant jobs, and there's one website that came up, and it was for a company called Trans-Aero Medevac, and they're a small life flight company out in southeastern New Mexico. So they were in my state. I was like, you got to be kidding me! This is lining up too perfectly. And so Chris and I literally just sat there and like typed up our resumes real quick and probably submitted it at the same time. And and these guys are probably like, what's going on?
Hey, what do you put in that line number 2? Experience. What do you put for experience?
It's like
flight time.
It's like you were there, because we were. That's exactly what we were doing.
Come on, Andy. I've been around the block a better too.
I know. This ain't your first rodeo, dude.
I cannot confirm nor deny that I've ever done the same thing. I'm just saying, dude. What is your resume look like? Let me copy that and then change mine to my stuff.
Yeah, how would you word this? How would you make this sound better? Yeah. And I was a little worried, because my buddy Chris, he's a very he's a great PA. He works as a trauma PA now. He had worked in, I think, either like GI general surgery or something before that. So super sharp dude. I'm like, well, yeah, this guy's definitely gonna get it. He's dropping central lines on the reg and chest tubes and stuff. And I just, still a new PA. I'd done some of that stuff and gotten some of that training just by way of working in emergency medicine, but not like Chris. But they called us and they're like, "Are you guys together? Like, what's the deal here? Where are you?" Like, "Yeah, we're in Kuwait. We're about to head back to the States." But they hired us both, and it turned out to be one of the greatest jobs I could have ever had. It was so much fun, and just got to work for a great company, a great organization. And our medical director was awesome. I mean, to give you a sense of where these guys are on the scale for HEMS, almost all of the rotary wing aircraft either had a physician, an MP, or a PA on it.
Yeah.
And with that, we had the option to kind of do more advanced procedures that most aeromedical transport companies can do. So we're authorized to do field amputations, field thoracotomies, lateral canthotomies. They had the latest and greatest equipment. We carried whole blood. Had the Hamilton T2s. I mean, it was ultrasound on board too. It was great. It was something else and impressive. Yeah, Ryan Hodnick is the name of the medical director there, and that guy is he's unbelievable. Yeah, great dude. Yeah.
Jeez, oh man, dude, you've had like a crazy cool career already, like all the way to now. Dang, man.
Yeah. It's been awesome. I've been very fortunate with the experiences and the opportunities that have been provided to me, and it just keeps on rolling on. You know, I ended up having to leave Trans-Aero for some family issues, but you know, when one door closes, another one opens, and
Absolutely.
I still get the opportunity to work with aircraft through one of my current employers. It's actually kind of a funny story. I was working at one of the ERs here in Albuquerque, and there was a EMT student. The guy I was working on his EMT intermediate, and he was up front doing, getting procedures, doing IV starts and stuff like that. I think I was working up in triage, and whenever I see those guys, I've been in that situation, right? I went through a paramedic course, and it could be intimidating. And so anytime I see any type of EMT student, I'm like, hey, let's go do something. So I had him help me suture, and I showed him how to do like a ultrasound IV start, and we're just hitting it off. And he's like, man, we're getting along way too well to not have something in common here. I'm like, yeah, I agree. So we start talking. It turns out he was a former Army guy, 75th Ranger Regiment dude. We had actually gone to Ranger school close to the same time and had some common acquaintances. Yeah. And so, end of the shift, he comes up and he's like, hey man, check this out. He shows me this video of him fast roping out at Kirtland. And he's like, hey, you looking for work? And I'm like, I'm always looking for work. I have a hard time turning down jobs. Especially ones, especially ones where you get to do stuff like that.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna have my CEO call you. I was like, hell yeah, do it up. And very quickly after that, started working for K&I Field Services. And so it's a civilian contracted company, and one of our primary customers is AVSOC, and kind of the bread and butter of what we do is provide personnel for the aviators to get certain training reps, mostly on different infiltration and extraction techniques, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of the new pilots for AVSOC and some of the ones that are already in that need to get their reps in before they're mobilizing somewhere, all come to Kirtland. And so when they're getting their training on how to do, rope ladders, hoists, in-flight rappelling, fast roping, obviously they have the air crew that knows what to do there, as far as their instructors, but they don't have the ground personnel to do it. And so that's where we come in. So basically we get to fly around all day and fast rope and climb in and out of helicopters out in the desert. It's awesome. We do a lot of OP4 stuff for them and some signal recognition stuff too. And there's a lot of other stuff this company does as well. But for one of the primary contracts, that's the cool guy. That's the cool guy stuff we get to do. It's really neat. Yeah.
And that's what you're in that right now. You're doing all that stuff right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And 40 years old and jumping out of helicopters. Like that's
what I'm talking about.
I got
once you start, you really can't stop. It's just like
no, I know.
Like no other way to scratch it.
It's problematic, man. But so that's one of my current jobs, and then I got a travel job out in a rural ER out in Arizona, which is also great. Fantastic staff, and again, I think the reason I like emergency medicine is I like seeing the weird stuff. And there's so much weird stuff that comes into the ER. weird injuries,
Oh yeah.
weirder people.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
It definitely leaves a good story. You know what? I'm just gonna relate with you for a second because
Oh, please
I
do.
remember going through my paramedic stuff, and as you know, like when you go through your paramedic stuff, you have to go through a hospital rotation. So, and I remember being in the ER for days, and when I would go home from my shift, whatever clinicals, and my kids would always be like, "So what happened today?" Because I always had a story. Always. They were like, dude on fire and butt naked running through the ER, and I got to tackle him. Or this,
Yeah.
Oh, I could go on for hours. You and I could probably go on for hours.
Everybody has a butt naked guy running through the ER story if you've ever worked in
at least once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Poosh,
Yeah.
total tackle.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I shouldn't say.
Oh, I know.
No, I was really protecting him and the rest of the patients and staff.
Of course. Right.
Let's
It was
make it official.
I'm picking up what you're throwing down.
Right.
They're like trying to catch a greased pig. Like the naked ones running through the ER are always extra slippery too, and fast usually.
Yes. Well, this dude he was not. No, he saw me coming the other way. He tried to turn around and didn't have chance.
He didn't have time.
No,
he was fast, but awesome. Quinny was faster.
Yes, I was. Actually, I had him like in like a half Nelson. I'm like, bro, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? He's like,
yeah. That's anyway. What I thought.
Yeah. Hey, you got nothing to say now? Yeah, big tough guy. Oh, sorry, I got diverted. And ER stories. They are fun.
Oh, it's fine. I know. I love ER stories. I love a good ER
dude,
story.
I need to back up though, man. Like we have skipped over like so much. Like there's 4 things. We're gonna actually talk 5 stories starting right now. We're gonna divert real quick to thank our sponsors.
Precision Aviation Group. Mission critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory, globally 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
But the first 4 are a bit of like your first medical calls, rescues, scenarios that you were involved with, and then you have 3 more that really stand out to you. And I'm going to caveat with this. Ready?
Okay.
The first one that we're going to talk about is a major fistula bleed, which is you're going to have to explain that to everybody, and I don't think I can do it justice. So, this is your very first like scene that you're put into.
Brand new, super green. Actually, I think I was even a student for the fistula bleed, and so fistula is basically an access port for dialysis, right? It's where you connect in to run the dialysis. And so we get called.
Area, right?
I want to say hers was, you can get them in near like the AC or forearm. So hers was an extremity access site.
Okay.
And
because I've seen some with like 2 ports, and like in different areas. It's a way to get access, right? Needles just
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. And usually a port is one that's like sub implanted, and that's usually for like chemotherapy. But so these things do occasionally have a tendency to bleed after dialysis. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens, right? So we're in North Carolina, and we go on this call to this woman at her home. She had just finished dialysis. It may not have been bleeding after she finished dialysis, but gets home and starts having to bleed. And we get there, and there's just towels and towels and towels over this woman's arm, and they're just drenched in blood. And so we get vital. She's a little tacky. Her systolic was still like, I want to say it was right around 90. But when we get up to get her into the bus, she's like, "I'm seeing stars," and we're like, "Oh no, oh no, that's not good." She's like, "My vision is closing in, and I'm seeing stars." And we're like, "That's not a good sign." So we're contemplating putting on a tourniquet, because when you put a tourniquet over a fistula like that, the tubing runs all the way up the arm. You put a tourniquet over it, that fistula's toast. It's not going to be functional anymore, and so interventional radiology or whoever does it is going to have to put in a new one, and so it's a whole ordeal. But this woman has an active bleed. Her vitals aren't great. She's seeing stars. She's having vision changes. So tourniquet has to go on, right? But you know what helps when you put on a tourniquet is if you actually tighten it down correctly. Yeah. So I did not do a very good job putting on this tourniquet, and we make it to the ER, and it was one of the PAs or the docs, and they're doing their rapid assessment, and he gets the tourniquet, and he's like, "Who the hell put this tourniquet on?" And I just like slowly put the hand up, and he's like, "Dude, you got to ratchet this thing down." And man, I felt so bad. I was like, man, this could have gone terrible for this woman. And so I'm spending the rest of the shift being all mopey, because I made a big mistake, but it's how we learn, right? Especially as a student.
Very much so.
And that same night, we go on another call to a woman who was very septic. I think she had like a ruptured appendicitis or something along those lines. And the medic I was with, both of us were working tirelessly to get IV access. And we finally did. And so we get to the same hospital. Thank God it wasn't the same provider that was seeing this woman when we got there.
Different doctor. Thank goodness.
Yeah. But obviously septic, very, very septic, very sick. So she needed that IV. And so we go to move her from the stretcher to the bed. And, one of the things that you always do before you make a move like that is make sure all your wires and tubing are all sorted out, which is the lesson learned from this experience, because I did not do that. And we went to go move her, and the IV tubing had somehow gotten wrapped around my trauma shears, and out comes the IV as we go to move her. And
oh man.
And so so totally messed that up, and so now I'm doing my best. I'm like, I could try again. Let me try to get an IV. And the provider there was like, "Nah, you've done enough." And I was just like, "Oh, I really messed this up, man. Like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry."
That's a double whammy on the same night.
On the same day, and
Andy.
I know. It was one of those days that makes you question your career choices, right? You're like, am I in the right field? Like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, because if I do, maybe I'm going to harm more people than help. But I was lucky that the paramedic that I was riding with that day, I'm sure he's been through a similar thing. He's like, "Look, man, we all make mistakes. I know that's two big duties in one day. You're a student. This is the way you're going to learn. Are you going to do it again?" I'm like, I sure as hell hope not. And so he could have really gone off on me about either of those things, because they were pretty big deals, looking back. But instead he chose to encourage me, and that really resonated with me. So a couple hiccups there, and I've made other mistakes throughout my career. We all have, but you live and learn, man. You just try not to.
A couple of my own right now, but I'm not going to.
Right?
It's not like you, Andy, not me.
That's right. This is
your mistake, not mine.
That's right. Welcome to the podcast where we learn all of Andy's terrible mistakes he's made throughout his career.
Tune in next time as Jason goes down his list.
Yeah, where we follow Andy on his next malpractice suit. Yeah.
And Jason Quinn will never be employed via anything ever again. You know what? You said it. We all have to learn. You all go somewhere. Everybody makes mistakes. It's how you get better. It's
Exactly.
It is the way it's the way it is. It's just it is. This is why you always have a preceptor with you or somebody that knows what they're doing, so they can look at you and they can say, "That was stupid. Don't do that again, dumbass." Okay, let's fix it next time.
And that's just the way I learn. It's just the way I learn.
Yep.
It is the hard way.
I freaking love it. Oh, that's terrible. Well, you know what? I'm night number 1. Freaking welcome to EMS, baby. Let's go.
Oh yeah. Yep. It was, and that's part of the reason I love pre-hospital care, man. It's just it's the Wild West. And it's you have to be super sharp. You have to expect the unexpected, and you have to adapt. You know, when you're in hospital medicine, you have a big support staff. You know, you have your RT, you have the docs available, you have your nursing staff. Out in the rig, it's just you and your partner, and your partner's usually driving. You know,
That's
so a lot of times it's you. So I have a ton of respect for everybody that works in pre-hospital EMS. Yeah.
Right on. Hey, you were there. You did it. So you know it well. So, all right, wait. We got 2 more stories to cover right now. The next one is, which I didn't even get to highlight highlight the second part. That was all you just rolled right into it. I like that. That was good. All right. So the next one is you had a home oxygen explosion. What?
So yeah.
All right. So for the record, this is what went through everybody's head right now, or at least mine. Boosh! That's what I'm seeing in my
Not quite like that. I didn't actually get to see the explosion. So we were this happened while I was working for Transaero. So I was working life flight. And we get a call for a mass cal out of the local hospital there where we were at in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And it was multiple burn patients. So we get in the rotor, we hop over to the hospital. I think Native Air was also there. And we're asking them, do you guys know what happened? Do you know what happened? No. And so we get in and we're talking to the doc, and there were 2 patients in there that were both on at-home oxygen, both smokers, and both decided to light up with their oxygen running, right? Which is a bad combination. Fire and at-home oxygen does not go well together, and usually results in that boom. And that's exactly what had happened. But I couldn't really wrap my head around it. I was like, were they sharing the same concentrator? Like what the hell's going on? Like, where it happened to them both? Were they like smoking in each other's faces, or what's the deal here? And he said, no, these are 2 completely isolated events. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So
no
at
way.
this small rural ER, 2 people on 2 different sides of the town were both at home smoking with their at-home oxygen. They both, exploded around the same time, and they came into the ER at the same time.
Oh, what? Oh,
I'm like,
wild.
I know. I was like, what the hell is going on in Carlsbad, man? Like, you got to be kidding me. And the ER doc, you can tell that the place was chaotic, because now you have 2 facial burn patients that had to be intubated, about the same time. The ER did a terrific job handling it, and we had a real quick response between us and Native Air. And I think Native had actually sent like a 3rd crew who was helping us with our patient, which was another lesson learned. Because if you have somebody help you with your IV drips, always check the IV pump after they do it. Because this woman we were just having so much trouble keeping her sedated. And, we normally start them off at like 2 mgs per minute of ketamine as part of the sedation package. And
Nice.
but man, she was just fighting it. We keep giving boluses of ketamine, and so a good takeaway from this is if something's not right. Start at the patient, try to figure out what's going on, and work your way back to the equipment. Right, just like kind of with a ventilated patient.
Yeah.
And so when finally my partner got to the IV pump, and he turned around and he showed it to me, and it's at like 0.2 megs per minute.
Oh no. Oh, that's
I was
like nothing,
oh.
by the way. For those that don't understand medicine, that's not a lot.
No,
That's somebody waking up. That's what that is. Yeah.
And so
Oh.
that fixed our sedation issues. But and luckily we caught it early on, and to the the person that set it up for it, things were pretty chaotic in that ER at that time. Yeah, it was essentially a true mass call, even though it was 2 people. A mass call is anything that overwhelms the services of the facility that they're in, right? And that definitely did. But yeah, I just couldn't believe it that happened at the same time in the same town. They came to the same ER. I mean, what are the odds of that? Only in Carlsbad. Only in Carlsbad.
Wild. Wow, what a trip.
Yeah,
you can't make this stuff up. This is the greatest part about it. This is why I love this podcast so much. Like, I would never have heard that story anywhere else. You just you cannot make this stuff up. It just happens, and you're like, no, how and why?
I know. The weird. I love seeking out the weird stuff, and you get plenty of that with flight medicine.
Oh my gosh!
You get the weirdest of the weird.
Well, yeah, I'm excited, but we got to bring it to the next one. Here it is. Here's the highlight: shooting outside municipal building. Now, I've had people come on here multiple times. We've heard a lot of people that have to deal with shootings across, especially bigger cities. Like, okay, you're looking for the entry, the exit, what's hit, blah 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 blah. But outside a municipal building, okay.
Yeah, and so with the air station we worked at was we had a couple. One was in Carlsbad. There's another one in Artesia, New Mexico. And this one we stay with the fire department there, which I loved. I love firefighters. Those guys are something else, man. They are a fun group to work with. But it was in Artesia, the fire department, sheriff's department, courthouse, sheriff's department is all in one big public safety complex. And we had our own separate rooms. And whenever I was working there, I liked to listen to the tones and figure out what was going on, because generally we would know if we were going to get activated or not. If it's a shooting, chances are we're going to fly them out. There's no level ones close by. Almost everything in that area either goes to Lubbock, Texas, or El Paso, Texas. And each one, either way, it's usually about an hour and a half flight. So pretty long transports. And I'm sitting in my room. I think I was watching like Rick and Morty or something like that. And the tones go off, and I couldn't hear exactly what the dispatcher said. And so I walk out. I heard fire. So I walk out because I see all the crew running out, and I stop one of the guys. I'm like, hey, did they say fire or shots fired? And he's like, oh no, shots fired. I was like, all right, that's going to be us. Let's get ready. So we got my partner, and then the battalion chief comes by. He's like, hey, you guys ready to go? I was like, yeah, I mean, we're getting ready. He's like, okay, they're bringing him around. I'm like, what do you mean they're bringing him around? He's like, you didn't hear anything going down? I'm like, no, I didn't hear anything. He said, it happened here at our building. I think somebody got shot out in the parking lot of the courthouse. And I was like, oh crap! All right, let me go grab the blood. Let's go. They were out at our helicopter, well before we were ready. So what had happened was there was a woman and her kids that had separated from her husband, and the baby daddy or not the baby daddy, the new boyfriend was there too. and there had been a lot of tension, conflict between the two. And so a lot of these municipal buildings, they have these safe exchange areas. With the intent being that if you had to drop off a kid or if you had to meet up with somebody you had conflict with, it's a safe space to meet up because the police are right there. There's video cameras, the works. And so the mom, kids, and the boyfriend show up there, and then the biological father shows up. There's an altercation, and the boyfriend ends up shooting and killing the biological father in the parking lot there. Oh. And but at that time, it was one of the admin officers that I think worked for the sheriff's department came out, and all he saw was a gunfight going down, I think, and ended up shooting the boyfriend in the back. And so that's who we ended up transporting. But it was confusing as all get out. I'm like, what do you mean he's here? What gunshots? I didn't hear anything. All the firefighters heard the gunshots and everything, and so they knew exactly what was going on. But my partner and I couldn't figure it out. But the guy was okay. He got real lucky. Just kind of missed his spine by like a pinch, ended up getting shot in the back. But we took him out to the nearest level 1. He got discharged that day, and then I think it didn't pan out so good for him. I think he ended up being brought up on murder charges. Wow. But it was just wild right there of all places to get in an altercation and a gunfight. That's probably the worst one you could pick.
Yeah, I know. Go old school, go out in the fields and in the forest, and man.
Yeah. High noon, like.
Right, yeah. Paces. That's terrible. I shouldn't say that.
It's the dark humor comes with the territory.
It totally does, and I say it all the time. Like, you have to understand what we see and do all the time. It's fine.
Exactly.
Judge me later.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the rest of us who do this job are all thinking the same thing right now. I'm just saying, dude.
But it's
those that don't have the stomach can't listen to this. It's cool. It's
move on to the next podcast.
Exactly. This is not
call
your
me daddy
podcast.
Or something. I don't know. It's not Real ResQ. But I love flying. We got to see so much cool stuff. I mean, oil rig fires, lots of trauma out there. You got 285 that runs from Texas to New Mexico. There's always accidents on 285. A lot of oil rig accidents, or not. I don't know if it's necessarily a rig, but a lot of oil pumping out in that area.
Yeah.
But probably one of the coolest things I got to see was we were flying a patient to El Paso, and all of a sudden the pilot starts making a loop. I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Hey, get your camera out, Andy. It's going to be on your side. Get your phone out and start recording." I was like, "All right." And so he starts making this slow pass, gets a little lower, and I see this drive-through or drive-in theater, which there aren't hardly any of those around anymore. This was in El Paso. And so I had my phone out, and I zoom in. I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." And it was full-fledged X-rated porn playing at this drive-in movie theater. I was like, no way. I looked at the pilot. His name was Mikey. I was like, "Mikey, how'd you catch that, huh? Is this one of your routine stops or what, dude? Like, how'd you know about that?" He's like, "Honestly, I've never flown by it when they were playing a movie. This is like the first time." It was, just stuff like that. It was, there was always something interesting to see or that was going on.
Dang, man. Dude, always never a dull moment in what we do, for sure.
No. What's the weirdest thing you've ever seen flying?
We're going to divert real quick to thank our sponsors. Attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance both physically and mentally with our individualized programming. Contact us at readyswimmer.com or through therealresq.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready? Oh gosh. Other than like nude beaches where you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't seen that. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's all, man, wow, you kind of put me on the spot. What's a weird?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I let me think about it. Let me come back to that weird.
Yeah.
That I've seen flying. I'm gonna write that down.
It's never the real good looking people that go to the nude beaches, is it?
No. Oh God, no. You actually like, whoa. Oh, go higher. I don't need to see that. I don't know if it's so much like weird things that I see flying is like cool or unique or different times where something might stand out to me, be like, oh, that was cool. I'm glad I was in the air for that. Just
yeah.
But weird. I'm gonna really have to think about that one.
All right.
Like the two cool things that I remember seeing while I was flying, like again, uniqueness of being in the air. Flying in Alaska, and we're transiting from I think Kodiak over to nope, that's a lie. I was coming from Valdez, and we were flying down to Cordova, and in the sound there was a pod of 15 killer whales.
Oh, no way.
Dropped down to about like 100 feet doing circles around them as they're just cruising all over the place. I was like, that's cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was
that is super cool. So those things terrify me, by the way.
Right? Oh yeah. I don't know if there's anybody that's survived. They say they don't attack. I don't know if there's ever been a survivor. I'm just saying. All right, I'll give you the second one. My second thing that I remember very vividly, other than again cruising the beach and seeing stuff, is we're flying. This is in Humboldt Bay, and we're cruising up the beach. We're headed back to the airport, and there were a bunch of college kids playing volleyball on the beach, and they were having a big party. And without exaggeration, there were 50 people there, just big group. There's the group's playing volleyball, and then everybody else around, and we kind of do I don't know, we were doing 50 knots. It wasn't crazy, but cabin doors open, and we waved to them, and they're like, yeah, and they're all, oh, Coast Guard. And I was like, hey, sir, can we just do one more flyby of that? And he was like, yeah, we can. So we go a little further up, we pop up, we roll back, and then we drop down right by him, and cabin door open, we're like, yeah, and they were like, woo, and everybody's jumping up and down. I'm like, that was cool, and they will remember that as well. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Buzzing the tower, man.
Right? Totally. It was sick. So that's so as far as weird stuff in flying, yeah. But cool stuff, those are the things.
Yeah, weird, unique.
Yeah.
It's all
a little different. Yeah. All right, Andy, I've had you on for a little while, right? But there's one specific story that the whole reason we connected was for this story. And this is deep. This story, I know a piece of it, which I'm excited to hear the fine details of it. But while you were over in Iraq and Afghanistan in that area, you have a very memorable or favorite rescue that was it was coordinated of an emergency evacuation of your former interpreter from Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And this is I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to start anything. I want you to bring it, but this is this is wild, because you're talking about going in, search and rescue the guy that was helping the U.S. out in any way, shape, and form to interpret and help our U.S. troops.
Yeah. So to backtrack a little bit, 2012, I get deployed to Afghanistan on part of what was called an SFAT. It was a Security Forces Assist and Advise Team. So about 12 U.S. service members, a bunch of different disciplines, intel, comms, fires, maneuver, right? Everybody kind of had their own lane. And we were attached to an Afghan National Army battalion. Consisted about, I want to say 400, 500 Afghan army folks. And the job was exactly what's in the title, assist and advise, right? Helping these guys out on their missions, kind of being the go-between between them and our parent battalion, and almost like liaison work, right? And then calling in for support, whatever they needed, medevac, fires, ISR, so like UAVs and different type of intel collection as well. It was great, man. I love that deployment. I love that job. It was pretty wild. This was in 2012, so Afghanistan's kind of going off again. And we were in an area called Maiwan Province, which is home of the Taliban. And for if you require interpreter services, depending on what you're doing, you're either going to get an interpreter that's a local national from the country. But if you're doing more intel related work, usually that interpreter has to be either like a U.S. service member, a crypto linguist, or some type of U.S. citizen for the clearance levels, right? But for what we were doing, we didn't require that. So all of our interpreters were local national Afghans, and these folks that volunteered to be interpreters, part of it, they did it for the job, right? For the money. But they wouldn't have supported us if they weren't unhappy with the way things were going in their country.
Yeah.
And also by doing so, they obviously put themselves at risk, right? Anybody working with U.S. forces in the eyes of the Taliban is public enemy number one. And so,
because they are literally helping their enemy get intel on them.
Yeah.
I mean, you flip it, you're thinking the same thing. It's a spy for the opposite the opposite side. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought here. So another part of the incentive was usually by working with the U.S. military, and in that capacity, you would become eligible for a special issue visa or an SIV. And so in a way, it was a potential ticket to the United States for a better life for them, for their families. And I mean, what an ideal method for finding, good potential folks to bring over. They speak English, they speak our language, otherwise they wouldn't be interpreting for us.
Right.
They've had some type of background check in order to get the job of working with us, and it's a good incentive. These folks they obviously weren't happy with the cultural and the aspects of that country and the different things the Taliban were trying to implement. And so that was kind of the driving force for a lot of these guys. And keep in mind that they're side by side with us every day. So we're getting shot at, they're getting shot at. We're getting blown up, they're getting blown up. We're getting mortared, they're right there. These guys are in our vehicles, they're at our key leader engagements. We relied heavily on them. And so one of our interpreters was Khan. Khan was from Kandahar. He primarily spoke Pashtun. He spoke a little bit of Dari. A lot of our Afghan National Army folks spoke Dari because they came from northern Afghanistan. Okay. And I think they intentionally put Afghan Army members that were from the north, stationed them down south and vice versa, so that they couldn't just like walk off post and go home, it kind of created some separation. But Khan was there with us throughout the whole thing, man. And super sweet guy, very, very kind of soft spoken, but worked hard. Eventually, I think we ended up having to send him back to the main base just because we didn't have a lot of need for Pashtun translation. But in my mind, he did the work. He continued to work as an interpreter for a couple other teams after that. And so that was 2012. I think we came back 2013 sometime. And myself and another guy on my team, Mike Lazo, through the years after that deployment, had been working with him on his SIV application, writing memos for him. And man, it's just like any other bureaucratic process. It would start to move forward a little bit, and then they deny for some ridiculous reason, right? So another memo, another letter, and this goes on, dude, for like, I mean, we left in 2013. We're talking 7-8 years, longer, because he never officially got his SIV until he had actually made it to the States, which is kind of where the story's going. So we're continuing to try to help Khan get his visa, and then everything starts to boil up about our withdrawal from Afghanistan. And so we kind of turn it up a little bit. I'm hitting up the State Department and be like, hey, what's the status? What's going on? Here's his SIV number. Like, we're getting ready to pull out, man. Like, we need to get some traction on this for this guy. But no change. And then we actually start, we hit August of 21, and we actually start the withdrawal. And that's when I start getting the panic text and phone calls from Khan. And as we got closer towards the end of the month, when things started getting real bad, that's when he called me one day. He's like, sir, if I don't get out of here, they're going to kill me and my family. They're going to kill me for sure. And man, it was hard to hear. And really, really got me worked up, because I'm thousands of miles away. And now I'm thinking to myself, I have this guy who is 100% depending on me to do something for him, to get him out of a foreign country that is about to implode. And if I don't, like, his life is in my hands. Like, he's going to die. He's going to get killed. And the Taliban had already started this process. Right. And so I'm trying to figure out different ways to do this. I'm calling my district representatives, state representatives, anybody I could reach out to. I'm calling their offices, and I keep getting the same canned responses. I think at this point we had seen one of the C-17s take off that had all the local nationals falling off of it, and I was like, oh, this. I think everybody realized this shit's real. This is bad. And so I was kind of in panic mode, but same canned responses from all these different offices. Hey, we know this is going on. We're doing everything we can. We have his name. I don't think anything was getting done. And so, I just got on social media and put out a post. I said, hey, if there's anybody that thinks they know someone that can help, then please reach out to me. Like, we need to do something about this. And I think a lot of veterans of the Afghan war that were in a similar situation, we were all trying to do the same thing for either interpreters we'd worked with that were still there, Afghan commandos. We knew who was on the target list for the Taliban, and we knew who needed to get out and what was going to happen if we didn't. I was very fortunate that I have some friends that work in a lot of different kind of special places out in DC and other areas. And one of them was a buddy that I was stationed with out in Hawaii. We were lieutenants together out there, very good friends, still to this day. And he had done a congressional fellowship up in DC. and had some correspondence with a representative out of Florida named Mike Waltz. And he said, I think I could link you up with this guy and he may be able to help. What I didn't know had been going on in the background was there was a retired lieutenant colonel, his name's Scott Mann. He was I think he was a 7th Special Forces Group guy, who was in a very similar situation with one of his former Afghan commandos that he had worked with. And this guy, God bless him, because he was going through the same thing I think a lot of us were that had been involved in that conflict. And he decided that he just wasn't going to sit down and take it. And he essentially developed an underground railroad for commandos and local national Afghans that had some type of similar affiliation with us as a military, and devised this plan to smuggle people onto HKIA and potentially get them out. I mean, it was absolutely genius. There's actually a book about it. So this whole operation was called Pineapple Operation Express, or Operation Pineapple Express.
Okay.
And so I got linked in with one of Mike Waltz's staffers who was working with Lieutenant Colonel Scott Mann and an assortment of other people who were really running this whole underground operation, and kind of was the go-between for Khan and this group that were developing this smuggling route. And so I keep in mind at this time, Khan has a wife and 4 kids. And so I'm getting all their passport information, all their data, passing it off. But at the same time, getting these frantic texts, what's the plan? Should we go? Should we not go? Should we stay? And I'm like, yeah, you gotta stay, lay low, don't go outside, send other people out to get stuff for you. Right. They're wigging out. They're hiding out, just waiting for direction. And so the way, and I don't want to do this story injustice. I encourage people to go out there and look up Operation Pineapple Express. There's a ton of interviews with Colonel Mann. There's a book about it. Like I said, it was a huge, I can't believe it got pulled off, to be honest. But the 82nd Airborne had been sent over to close out HKIA and help with NEO operations. And to kind of make a long story short.
Nope, don't do that.
Oh, okay. All right.
I need to make a long story short. You can make this as long as you want, dude. I want the details, man.
All right. So one of the companies there was led by a commander, Captain John Folta, and First Sergeant Jesse Kennedy. And somehow these guys had gotten in touch with the folks putting together Operation Pineapple Express, and they had found a little hole in the fencing to HKIA. And but unfortunately, it was next to this huge aqueduct that was, I want to say it was like knee high with just sludge and water and gunk. At this time, the whole outside of the base is going nuts, right? Just local nationals swarming this place, trying to get out. And so I start getting directions. This is like 2 a.m. in the morning, get a call like, hey, it's go time. Get Khan up. And so I'm calling Khan, can't get a hold of him, call his cousin who was living here in Austin. Cousin can't get a hold of him. Half hour goes by, and finally Khan picks up. He's like, "Hey, sir, I'm ready. Sorry, I'm ready to go. let's get this thing going." And so there were specific directions to go to this location, and then this location was kind of a phased approach to get him to where he was going to be able to get entrance through that hole that was being monitored by the 82nd. And so the first place we sent him was to a local hotel. and we're basically playing the telephone game. And the way they referred it was, what they compared it to is essentially being like a shepherd, right? I was getting information on what the next steps were, and then I would pass it on to Khan, and he would go. And there were a couple times we had a false start where I'd be like, hey, get ready, up, hold up. No, that's not going to work. And I think it was based on some of the intel they were getting about what Taliban was doing outside the perimeters. I think the Taliban knew that this underground railroad had been established, and they were doing everything they could to figure out where people were going, how they were getting in, because they knew that those people that were getting funneled through were the targets they were looking for. So if they could crack the code on that, they had easy access to the folks that they wanted to kill. And so finally we get the actual go. And so send him to this hotel, and give him the directions where to go. And he's hitting all the marks. And then I don't hear from him for a while. And maybe a couple hours pass by, maybe even longer than that. And I finally get a text that goes, hey, sir, I'm inside the base. I was like, we did it. We finally did it. And it was maybe 20 minutes after he sent that text, is when Abbey Gate got blown up and killed those 12 Marines amongst countless civilians. And that kind of shut everything down. I mean, he made it in by the skin of his teeth. Unfortunately, it was so chaotic that he kind of lost his family in the process. He couldn't get his family in. They had 4 very small children, and his wife, and they just couldn't make it through that aqueduct and through the chaos. So Khan made his way out of there, got flown back to the United States. He is now a U.S. citizen residing in the great state of Texas.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And it was pretty wild, man. It felt good to be able to do something in the face of watching that whole country implode. Especially after we've been fighting there for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
And it was hard to watch, because in a sense you're questioning everything we did over there. Like, what was it for? Our buddies and our comrades, they got injured or killed over there. Like, you're watching everything just pick up and leave after all that work, blood, sweat, and tears were put in. So being able to at least get Khan out was very important to me. I mean, and the other part of that too is because he was one of our battle buddies. Like I said, he went through all that entire experience with us, right? And we never leave a fallen comrade. And so it helped me a little bit kind of come to terms with that. And so we got him out, but I would say, you're always talking about greatest saves. That was probably one of my greatest saves. And with obviously a ton of assistance and legwork from other folks. But it's not over, because his family is still over there in Afghanistan. Now that he's a naturalized citizen, been going through the process of trying to get his family over. Khan actually ended up returning to Afghanistan at one point, because I was not on board with this, but I understand where he was coming from. His father got very ill, and actually ended up passing away. But before he did, he wanted to go over and see him and pay his respects to his dad, which, that's something that's important in our culture, but right. in the Afghan culture, that is the patriarchy of the family. Yeah,
you're running back into the lion's den with that one. Like
but that's the dude, you know. I understand what he was why he had to go back and see his father before he passed. But now his wife is about to have a fifth child, I think, as a result of that trip. Unfortunately, we've kind of run into the same issue trying to get his family out. It's things run at the speed of the government, and it's no hit on the State Department. I don't think that they have the staffing or the what's the best way to put it here? I don't think they ever anticipated having to do so many SIVs in such a short amount of time. Yeah. And they were caught way off guard. And so it's been a hell of a time trying to get the family back as well. Last time I talked to him, he said, right, we have to wait for the baby to be born before they can get everybody back. But part of the reason I want to come on this podcast is really for two reasons. One, if there's anybody that may know somebody that can help expedite this process and reunites this interpreter that spent years assisting our military in Afghanistan and reuniting him and his family. If you might know somebody that can help with that process and make it happen lickety split, then hopefully they could reach out to me on Instagram or email or something, and try to help with that. And two, he's Khan's an Uber driver in Austin. He's about to have his wife and 5 kids come live with him. It's going to be a little expensive, so I'm looking to raise funds to either help with their travel if that's needed, if it's not funded through the State Department, to get them back to the U.S., and two, just to help them get a place and be sustainable, and all set up for him and his kids. Yeah.
Man, you're a good man, Andy. That's pretty badass, dude.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's it's like I said, he was one of us. He may not have gone through the training and all that, but he was there with us. And a lot of these other interpreters were the same way. Yeah, and I think most of the interpreters that I've had have made it to the United States, and it's more than deserved. I think for these guys. But what was funny about this whole operation, Pineapple Express, is it was definitely themed off the movie Pineapple Express. There is a
nice.
There's so part of the way to recognize them. So the way that the U.S. soldiers that were by that hole in the gate would know that this was one of the individuals that we were smuggling in was, one, they had like a little photo that they would hold up on their cell phone that had a picture of pineapples, and then there was a challenge and response code word. So typical infantry tactic: you're coming into a patrol base. In order for somebody to recognize you as a friendly, you say a certain word, and there's supposed to be a certain reply back to it. And for this operation, the code word was Seth and Rogan. So that kind of
that's fantastic.
I kind of topped it off. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I love it. That's what happens when you leave operation names in the hands of soft dudes.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Andy, I'm at a bit of a loss here, man, because a lot of times I can relate to so many things that we do in rescue. I have no relation to any of this. I've never been in combat. I've never dealt with what you've dealt with. And the fact that you're coming on here to not only tell this story, but to try to reconnect the family, that's amazing, man. And
thanks, man. Yeah. The combat piece to it, I mean, it is a different experience but I think it's more relatable than you give yourself credit for. You know, it all boils down to why most of us go into this profession that we do. Like for you as a rescue swimmer, me as a provider or medic it's all about helping people.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, and that's why we do it. And I was fortunate enough that, again, I think that got imprinted on me from my parents, watching them do it over decades and decades. And so I think I was just fortunate to be raised like that and have that drive to want to help folks. And so really it goes back to my folks, and they're a big part, I think, of what set me up to be able to do what I do.
Amazing, man. That's fantastic. It really is. I mean that you're literally like, you're helping him from this side of the world. He's on that side of the world to try to make this happen, and still trying to connect all the dots to get everybody, all the players and everybody together. Well done, sir. Well done.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a wild trip. It was a wild trip, and not over. Hopefully over soon. So
this is going to be my next question is, like, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, to either help with trying to connect everybody together, or to help financially? How can they get in touch with you?
So you can hit me up on Instagram.
What's your handle?
I'm embarrassed to say it. It's at Andy Pandyman. ANDYPANDYMAN.
That'll be right underneath you on the screen right here. Yeah,
like and subscribe. Yeah.
Really serious to really funny, really quick.
Yeah. And you can put my email in there too. And then we're starting to GoFundMe for Con. Right now, it's in the approval process. It should be set up hopefully by the time this comes out, and I'll send you the link. Right now, anything involving Afghan refugees, GoFundMe has to approve to ensure it's not breaking any type of international law. So it's just more bureaucratic bullshit. But hopefully we'll be set up this week, and yeah, I'll just, if you don't mind, just dropping it in somewhere wherever you post this.
Yeah, it'll be all on the write up in the description of the episode, so you guys can all check it out there, and it'll be on the screen as well. So
yeah, and I'm gonna make some social media posts with it. So I understand for a lot of people, especially right now, money's a little tight. Not an issue. If you could even just share the social media posts, I mean, that's a big help too. Just get the word out to help this family.
And it's badass, dude. I like what you're doing. Never stopping. It's cool.
Can't stop, won't stop, man. Yeah.
Nah, definitely not. Let's go. Ranger all the way, huh? Wait,
that's right. All the way.
Yeah. I got that one right. Is that what you're telling me?
You got it. You even said "whoa" correctly. A lot of people, usually people that don't, that aren't in the Army, say they're like, who,
no, that's different.
Yeah.
Dude, Andy, thank you so much for coming on, sharing Con stories, as well as some of the other ones of you just being in the medical field. This has been an absolute blast. I'd like to ask one more thing, my last question to all my guests, and that is a piece of advice that you would pass on to all the listeners.
Yeah, of course. My piece of advice, especially for those working in the medical field, is don't put limitations on who you learn our profession from, right? And by that, I mean that don't feel that when you are learning medicine, that there's any sort of hierarchy to it. As a PA, I don't need to necessarily learn everything I know from somebody that's above me, like a physician. Some of my most valuable learning experiences, even as a PA, have been from my medics, my nurses, respiratory therapist. You should look for role models and learning experiences from every type of echelon, right? I've worked with some of the smartest flight paramedics I've ever met in my life. I mean, these guys, they could be physicians if they wanted to. They have the intellect, they have the drive, but they just love what they're doing so much that they choose to stay in that lane. And I've had nurses catch stuff that I didn't think of before. You should be learning from everybody. It is, we've been lucky in that in the medical field, we've definitely adopted the team approach. And that's the way everything I think should be looked at. Just the other day, I learned something from one of the medics that works at the ER that I'm currently at. And when you remove those barriers, you will find that it tremendously improves your practice. And so, yeah, don't feel that there needs to be any type of hierarchy to learning medicine. I mean, obviously there's regulations and standards that come with it, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of these folks have a ton of experience. You look at medics. I guarantee a medic is going to have more innovations than most PAs. So if you want to learn how to RSI, you want to learn how to innovate, dude, find a medic. These are the guys that are doing it in the back of a moving vehicle sometimes. So
totally.
So that's kind of my one of my big things I'd like to pass along. Man,
that's great. Great advice. I am 100% with you too, because there's a lot of people that I've learned a lot of things from, and it was in all different levels throughout my career. So
yeah, it keeps you humble, and you need that. You need that in medicine. You need to be humble.
Yep, absolutely. Andy, this has been an amazing trip for me. Like, just listening to your stories and what you do now, what you're doing for Khan and his family. I love that. So thank you again for coming on and joining me. Great advice in the end. And when I come out to New Mexico, I'm calling you. And we're going to go out and have a beer. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right?
Hit me up. Or 2 or 3,
whatever.
We'll do it up.
Or one big one.
Yeah.
I was practicing in Germany, so now I got it down to one big one.
I dig it, man. I dig it. We'll do it up.
I look forward to it, man. And thank you again, my brother.
All right. Thanks, Quinny. Appreciate it.
Anytime. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here.
Go.
Now it's time for me to pull chocks and take off. But before I go, I'm always looking for the memorable rescues that people have done. If you have one that you're willing to share or know somebody who has a story, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to highlight it here at the Real ResQ. For everybody that is standing by for that SAR alarm, remember, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. So until next time, fly safe and swim hard. Thank you for joining me today here at the Real ResQ Podcast, powered by Vertical Helicast. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode.
Precision Aviation Group. Mission critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory, globally 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
And attention all rescue professionals and tactical athletes. Ready Swimmer and the Real ResQ have teamed up to bring you the ultimate solution in tactical athlete training. Developed by military rescue professionals, our team boasts over 60 years of combined experience. Elevate your performance both physically and mentally with our individualized programming. Contact us at readyswimmer.com or through therealrescue.com and unlock your full tactical athlete potential. The question is, are you ready?
I mean, call me old-fashioned, but I feel like a podcast that's on a helicopter-specific platform, like the Vertical Helicast, I feel like the podcast host should at least be a helicopter pilot, not this guy in the back. I mean, what is he even doing back there? Oh, I'm Jason, Rescue Swimmer 500. I mean, like, so? Is it that hard? I mean, look, if Ashton Kutcher could do it, I mean, I feel like anyone can do it, so cool, dude. Number 500. How about you actually fly helicopters for once? Just saying.